Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Wisconsin getting ready for its Big Ten opener on Saturday as Maryland comes to town. Badgers have beaten the Terrapins all 4 times they've played since Maryland came into the conference in 2014. Wisconsin has run for at least 215 yards in 3 of those 4 matchups. But this year's run game has been a real struggle. The team averaging 136 yards per game, under 4 yards per carry. At least some of that is due to the issues with the offensive line, where they're starting 2 redshirt freshmen and spending a lot of time with multiple starters out. But Coach Luke Fickell says they have to persevere.
Well, these guys are being thrust into a situation and an opportunity, I guess depends on how you look at it, that they have to grow even faster. That's where that whole idea that every snap of every day, in particular every game, that you get an opportunity to play in, regardless of what the situation is, we have to take advantage of it. I think those guys are doing a great job at that.
It's unclear if starting quarterback Billy Edwards Jr. will be available to face his former team. He's dealing with a knee injury. Kick on Saturday is at 11. Turning to the Packers, injuries also a theme for them, as offensive lineman Zach Tom and Aaron Banks missed last week's game, did not practice yesterday. Green Bay is at Cleveland on Sunday.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
You may know Rural Mutual Insurance as the #1 farm insurer, but did you know they also offer competitive home, auto, business, and life insurance? They make it convenient to bundle your insurance while saving you time and money. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn more.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, after a day off, the Brewers back in action tonight as the Angels come to American Family Field. The Crew owns a 5-game lead on the Cubs in the NL Central with 12 games to go. Their magic number is at 8. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil-Pritt.
It starts and ends with Justin Herbert, who, to me, has thrown his hat to be an MVP candidate. He can be hyperbolic, and it's like Jim, when he says, my goal is to make sure Justin Herbert is a Hall of Famer. And I think a lot of people kind of smirk and go, that's just Jim being Jim. But he's kind of serious, because Justin Herbert can be a Hall of Famer. Like, Justin Herbert is a Hall of Fame talent. And when you get a coach like this, where you're going to win a lot of games, you're going to get the opportunity every year to be in huge games in December and obviously in the playoffs to put yourself in the Hall of Fame conversation. I would take Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh in this team. They could play with anybody.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
There's just some reaction last night. John Middlecoff, who was on the show about 2 weeks ago, just gets us into the show. There's no real intentional reason. I'm like, hey, you got to hear what John Middlecoff said. I just wanted something pertaining to last night's Monday Night Football doubleheader to kind of get the ball rolling. I want to react to last night. It was a late one if he stayed up until the end of the second game. So the first game, Texans, Buccaneers, very good, Buck and Aikman. And you probably could have turned that game off and went to bed and not really been any worse for wear today. But there was a second game, and I actually enjoyed it. It was Chris Fowler, Dan Orlovsky, Louis Riddick, who probably once upon a time felt like they were going to be the Monday Night Football booth, probably more so Orlovsky and or Riddick. They've done 3-man booths in the past. But then, of course, they brought over Buck and Aikman. So I actually enjoyed getting to listen to those two guys. And while the second game wasn't as compelling, it wasn't nearly as close. And I don't even know that it was high-level, high-quality football. A lot of Geno Smith running around, a lot of Justin Herbert running around, which I get a little worn out by. That being said, I would like for Jordan Love to run a little bit more, as we've talked about. It was kind of a sloppy game, and it wasn't close. But that late night game, what Justin Herbert and the Chargers did, winning rather comfortably, I would say. Now they're 2-0. They're 2 games in front of the Chiefs. They're in a great position in the West. Maybe the game wasn't great, but it gives us some great talking points, which is, let's be real, at least for these 2 hours every day. That's what really matters. So that's where I want to begin. I want to talk about last night's Monday Night Football games. I want to have some discussions about the Packers defense, specifically some of the younger players on that defense outside of Edgerrin Cooper, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Gary, Xavier McKinney. Those are the stars. Those are the guys at the forefront. I want to talk about the other young players and decide, okay, which one of these players, if you had to save money for one or two, because the Packers are going to have to do that now, especially that they're paying, Micah Parsons on top of paying Rashawn Gary, on top of paying Xavier McKinney. They're paying Nate Hobbs to a lesser degree. We're going to have to pick and choose. Which one of those young players do you really, really believe in? Which of those players would you really buy stock in and want to hold on long term. We'll get into that in a little bit, and some Brewers injury updates in hour number 2 as well. Your calls welcome throughout, as always, at 608-321-1670. And the show does live stream. If for whatever reason you're not able to listen on the radio, that's fine. Got you covered. The Wisco Sports Zone app is pretty baller. You can listen live there. You can watch the live stream there. And of course, it's on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. And you can follow and tweet along during the show at Wisco Grant. So the first game was a barrel of fun. I really like the Buccaneers. I often think if I wasn't a Packers fan, which teams would I cheer for? Which teams do I really respect? Or which teams seem to really have it figured out? They have a good process, or they have a good structure. They're just, I don't know. They got something where it's like, I could invest my fandom into that. And there's 2 other teams in football, mostly in the NFC. As a Packers fan, it's just the conference that I'm more interested in. I really like the Rams and what they've built. And I think McVay is actually underrated, and most people believe him to be one of the best coaches in football, which goes to show exactly how good he is. We had Steve Avila on with us at the Super Bowl. I really like him. Stafford's filthy. Devontae Adams, kind of a mixed, feeling relationship there, but I would like to see him succeed. I really like the Rams. I could see myself being a Rams fan if the Packers didn't exist, and I wasn't an owner, obviously. The other team is the Buccaneers. They now, for the better part of half a decade, or a little bit more than half a decade, have been drafting nothing but dudes, guys who can play, guys who are physical, guys who are fast, right? With the Packers draft strategy is we want guys who are physical freaks. The Packers have their thresholds that they rarely stray from. We want big, tall, strong, fast. And the idea is when you take enough of those guys, not all of those picks will work, but if you take enough of those guys and you stick to those thresholds and stay to your principles, you end up with a team, well, maybe the team that the Packers have right now on defense that's fast and long and athletic and hits hard. And I think the Buccaneers have done a really good job at that. I know nothing about their draft process or how their general manager goes about it. Jason Licht, I think it's Jason Licht. But everybody can play. All of their draft picks seem to hit, and they're fast and strong, and Emeka Ibuka is good right away, and Bucky Irving is awesome, despite being, the second or third running back taken in the draft. The Packers took Marshawn Lloyd, and everyone's like, they got the best back in the draft. Well, at least through a year and a couple games, Bucky Irving looks to be a stud. Baker Mayfield, after almost being out of football, seems to be the perfect leader. He's got a little Favre. He's got the moxie, and he can make the throws, and guys want to fight for him and play for him because he's running down the field and throwing his shoulder into a guy and talking smack at CJ Gardner-Johnson. I just like how he fits there. I like how they build that thing. That's a team that I enjoy. And Bill and I, for what it's worth, which is nothing, but it's a point of reference, if nothing else, and about nothing else, Bill and I made our picks on the huddle 2 weeks ago, and my NFC Championship game that I picked, just kind of for fun, I think Rams Buccaneers. Those are 2 teams that I could totally see getting hot at the right time, having all the talent, winning in the postseason because they have certain things. Now, obviously, I hope that doesn't happen because I hope the Packers are in the NFC Championship game. But I picked the Bucs. I have the Bucs in the NFC Championship game, and through 2 weeks, I feel pretty good about that. That is a machine. That is an organization that constantly is finding, developing talent. All these guys can play right away, and Baker is a barrel of fun and a really, really fun, not just story, he's just a fun player. We're at the point now where Geno Smith is a nice story. Baker Mayfield has progressed or transcended a nice story. He's just a really good player that I enjoy watching and can obviously win. The other half of that first game was CJ Stroud and the Texans. It's really, really interesting how CJ Stroud as a rookie was tremendous and making all these big throws. And you thought, this is going to be the guy for 10 years, right? The Texans found their guy. And last year didn't go all that great. He looked to take a step back. This happens in football a lot. Bobby Slowick 2 years ago was the next hot head coaching candidate. And then a year later, he's fired, right? That's how quickly things progress in the NFL. And to build off the conversation that we had yesterday to start the show, it's a results-oriented business. Right? That's how the NFL works. I don't care how good you've been in the past. I don't care how good you were last year. If you're not good enough, someone's getting fired, someone's getting benched, someone's getting demoted. That's how it works. And we've seen that with the Texans. They can't really protect. They can't run the ball at all. They don't have a reliable back or a reliable running game to support CJ Stroud. And whether it's all the supporting cast, it's probably a combination of lack of a good offense, lack of a running game, struggle to protect, and I don't think CJ Stroud is playing all that well. Now there's questions about CJ Stroud, they're 0-2. Are the Colts going to win the South? Funny enough, the Texans are struggling and no one's going, well, it's the Jags time. No, everyone's like, well, Daniel Jones and the Colts. What a hilarious division that is. So as we compare these young quarterbacks and we talk about these teams, the Texans and the Packers for 2 years now have kind of been tied at the hip as AFC, NFC counterparts, starting with a young quarterback, maybe starting a little faster with that young quarterback than we thought, both in CJ Stroud's rookie year and Jordan Love's quote unquote rookie year, his 4th year, but first year as a starter. They came onto the scene down the stretch. It's like, wow, these are going to be the teams for a decade. The Packers have continued to progress. The Texans have regressed the last couple of years. That defense is legit. But CJ Stroud and that offense and that lack of a running game, that's a real problem. So a very entertaining first game last night. The Buccaneers are legit. They've started 2-0 for like 4 straight years now. I heard that more than once on the broadcast, like 3, 4, 5 straight years, something like that. Like the Buccaneers start fast. They draft guys who can play. Baker's fun. Todd Bowles has got big ball going for 4th downs and being aggressive. I love it. And also last night gave us, another data point on CJ Stroud and the Texans where it's like, what exactly is going on down there? Now, this is the Wisco Sports Show, so I'll give you a Packers coded take here before we take our first break. I want to replay this cut. This is John Middlecoff last night. I was listening to a lot of reaction last night before bed and this morning about what people were saying about both of these games. Probably most notably the Chargers, because that was the last game of the night. So people kind of led whatever reaction or whatever post-game stream or show. So I was watching John Middlecoff 3 and out with the volume last night. He's kind of become my number one guy to listen to, react and to give interpretation and analysis of NFL games. This is the cut that you heard in the intro, but I'll play it alone one more time because I want to make a Packers coded point off of this.
It starts and ends with Justin Herbert, who to me has thrown his hat to be an MVP candidate. And he can be hyperbolic. And it's like, Jim, when he says, my goal is to make sure Justin Herbert is a Hall of Famer. And I think a lot of people kind of smirk and go, that's just Jim being Jim. But he's kind of serious because Justin Herbert can be a Hall of Famer. Like Justin Herbert is a Hall of Fame talent. And when you get a coach like this, where you're going to win a lot of games, you're going to get the opportunity every year to be in huge games in December and obviously in the playoffs to put yourself in the Hall of Fame conversation. I would take Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh in this team. They could play with anybody.
So I think Herbert's great. I think Harbaugh's awesome. And what they've built is something sturdy and reliable. They didn't try to microwave the process in year 1 and try to win right away, although they were pretty good last year in Harbaugh's first year. I think this is a team that's going to get better and continue to improve and grow and be very stable and very consistent, which is what you need with a high-level quarterback like Herbert. That's what the Packers did with Rodgers for a while. We need to build something that can sustain. And I think the Chargers have done that. So what I'm about to say isn't criticism of Justin Herbert or the Chargers or Jim Harbaugh. It's just a question. This is very Bukowski colored, what I'm about to say. This is what you'd get from Peter on Locked on Packers. I watched Justin Herbert last night, and I thought, I feel like that's Jordan Love. I feel like that's AFC Jordan Love. I don't have any stats in front of me. I don't have any EPA per play, PFF grade. I have no data in front of me to support this, just using my eyes to watch games. I feel like Justin Herbert and Jordan Love are the same guy. Honestly. Now, Herbert might be a little bit more physically sturdy. He's certainly a better runner, a more natural runner when he's got to scramble. So I guess I would lean towards Herbert in that. But anytime that we've tiered quarterbacks, when we've had conversations, we do this on Bill's show sometime, like once a week, it seems like, hey, here's the latest power rankings on this or that. Let's just react and talk about it, right? So we do that once a week, every other week on Bill's show. And every time we're ranking quarterbacks, it always starts tier 1 with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, okay? Period, space bar, new paragraph. The next tier begins. And I think Jordan Love and Justin Herbert have to be pushing the front of that next tier. I heard so much analysis last night and today from people on sports radio and television saying, well, Justin Herbert is knocking on the door or he belongs in the company of Lamar, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Joe Burrow. I think Herbert is great. But I watched him last night, and didn't it kind of feel similar to the Jordan Love experience? He makes a bunch of throws where it's like, wow, that's talent. That's a gifted arm. That's a gifted player. And then there's some other drives where it's like, I feel like I could have been a little cleaner. I feel like I could have been a little bit more efficient. Like last night's game, at no point in the second half felt close. At no point. I know the final score was 20-9. The Chargers did not score in the fourth quarter. They only scored a field goal in the third quarter. So at halftime, it was 17-6, and the scoring kind of just from there. Both teams got a field goal. The Chargers in the third, the Raiders in the fourth. And for that entire game, I thought the Chargers are better. Herbert's better. Harbaugh is a better coach or on the same plane as Pete Carroll. At no point last night while watching was I thinking, are the Chargers going to blow this? Very similarly to the way I watched the Packers last Thursday against the Commanders and thought the Packers are better. Jordan Love is playing great. Matt LaFleur is coaching great. The defense is flying around. Yes, I know it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter. I was not concerned about the Packers blowing that game. But Packers fans, as we talked about last Friday, Packers could have won a little bit more confidently, a little bit more commandingly, if that's a word. I'm not sure it is. Like the Packers had a couple of other opportunities. Jordan Love had a couple of other throws that he left out on the field that could have made that final score look a little bit more impressive. Could have wrapped the game with a bow or added some style points. I understand it's the NFL, so style points really don't mean all that much. I still think style points are important for when we're forecasting which teams are going to win the most games and which teams are going to win championships. But in the context of a Monday night game or a Thursday night game or a Sunday afternoon game, just win. Yes, it's hard to win in the NFL. I understand that. But when I watch Herbert, I feel like I'm watching Jordan Love, where it's like, man, he makes some throws that there's single digit. There's 5 or fewer men on this planet that can make that throw and can do that thing. And then there's a couple plays throughout the game where I'm like, yeah, that's why he's Justin Herbert and not Josh Allen. That's why he's Justin Herbert and not Patrick Mahomes. And don't we feel similarly watching Jordan Love? Unbelievable arm talent. In fact, I think his arm talent is underrated among Packers fans. I thought he made a half dozen throws last Thursday night where I'm like, holy balls. But Packers fans were so numb to some of these throws. We've been watching high-level quarterback play, guys with rocket arms for so long. We haven't had to endure a Mac Jones or a Tua or someone with a noodle arm. And those guys are capable of it. Kirk Cousins, those guys are capable of winning football games. But it's been 40 years, Packers fans, since we've watched a quarterback that's incapable of throwing an out-breaking route from the far hash. It's just not something we have to worry about. So when Jordan Love drops 12 yards back behind the line of scrimmage from the far hash and rips an outbreaker to Dontavian Wicks, none of us go, oh my God. We go, yeah, that's an NFL throw. Well, it is in Green Bay. For half of the league, that's a throw. It's like, man, we'd kill for a guy who can make that throw. So I think Jordan Love's arm talent is underrated among Packers fans. But when I watch Jordan Love, back to my initial point, comparing him to Justin Herbert, I see a lot of throws that make me go, holy balls. Man, he can do it. That's a guy who can win a championship. And then there's 4 or 5 plays throughout a game where I'm like, and that's why he's not Josh Allen. That's why he's not Mahomes, or that's why he's not Lamar. I feel like Herbert and Love are the same guy. And I say that about Justin Herbert slightly derogatory because that's pulling Justin Herbert a little bit lower down. But I say it about Jordan Love complimentary because most people believe Justin Herbert to be on a plane higher than Jordan Love. And I'm telling you, I think Justin Herbert should be thought of a little bit more lowly than he is. And Jordan Love should be thought of a little bit more highly than he is, at least through 2 games of this season. I think both players are excellent. Both can win a Super Bowl, but they are not Lamar, Josh Allen, Mahomes, or Joe Burrow. And I'm interested, if Joe Burrow misses this season, then comes back next year and the Bengals stink and don't make the playoffs. Like, I wonder how long Joe Burrow remains in that tier just because, I don't know, dude misses a lot of time and his team has missed the playoffs. And you can't say that about Lamar, or Josh Allen, or Mahomes, or any of these other guys. I think Herbert leads that next tier or is in the conversation of leading that next tier. And I think Jordan Love should be as well because the feeling I get watching Herbert is kind of the same feeling I get watching Jordan Love. I think they're both unbelievable talents who are wired the right way, great leaders. The teammates buy into both. Huge arm, can make all the throws. But then there's 4 or 5 plays a game where it's like, yeah, that's why he's not tier 1. That's why he's not thought of as Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. So I hear all these takes today. Justin Herbert, I mean, he's pushing to be the best quarterback in the league. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. He's awesome. But I like my guy just as much. I feel like I'm watching the same guy when I watch my guy, Jordan Love. So I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a miss among a lot of sports talkers that go nuts for Herbert and maybe underrate Jordan Love a little bit. And again, that's why I say this is a very Bukowski-coded segment because, normally I don't come on here and like, our guy's underrated. For the most part, we're nitpicking our own guys because we're harder. On this show, at least, we're harder on our own guys than anybody else. But I think in this case, I don't know. I don't think it's fair that Justin Herbert gets praised and gets elevated in that tier. It's not like he's ever had a deep playoff run, right? If Justin Herbert had a one deep playoff run like Joe Burrow, well, then yeah, he's in that tier because we have proof of concept that he can do it. At this point, it's conjecture. I mean, Jordan Love has had more playoff success than Justin Herbert. Just something to ponder. Two quarterbacks, different conferences who are thought of differently, and I don't think they should be. That's my opening take. If you have something to add to this, we can further react to Monday Night Football last night. At the bottom of this hour, I want to talk a little bit about the Packers defense and the young guys, the other guys. Who are we buying into? Who would we believe in most? Because eventually the Packers are going to have to make some decisions on these guys outside of McKinney, Cooper, Parsons, Rashawn Gary. That's coming up in a bit. But coming up next, your phone calls at 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Zone Blitz pregame bash is back. Every Wisconsin home game 2 hours before kickoff at the Blue Moon Bar and Grill. And this year, do I have something special for you? It's a perfect snack for game day or any day. Wenzel's Farm Pro Snack Sticks. Come see me and I'll hand you 16 grams of protein to fuel you through the day. Wenzel's Farm offers that and so much more, crafted in small batches using premium cuts of meat, perfectly seasoned, and naturally hardwood smoke. Check out wenzelsfarm.com. Made by pros for pros.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Baker's just the best. And Baker absolutely can win league MVP this year. Absolutely can. And the Bucks absolutely can be the 1 seed as predicted on this show. They have played 2 road games against teams that were considered either possible or likely playoff teams. They could have lost both, and Baker made game-winning plays in the waning moments of both. Now they get the Jets. Then a tough home game against the Eagles, but they play the Eagles really well. Seahawks, Niners, Lions, it's not easy, but the Bucks are for real.
That's Nick Wright on his podcast, What's Right with Nick Wright. Or at least I think I saw the breakout clip on Twitter. Got to give some love to Baker last night, too. Last night, Monday Night Football, I think the stories are what's wrong with the Texans? That's probably story number one. These are in no particular order. Story number two would be the Buccaneers are legit. They continue to be an organization not talked about on the same level as the Packers or the Eagles or the Chiefs or the Ravens or the Bills. In fact, maybe they're more impressive than the Bills or the Chiefs because they've built that thing up and stacked an awesome roster and won at a high level and been consistent in winning at a high level without that superstar quarterback, right? They're not riding on Josh Allen's coattails. They're building this up around Baker, who's very good within his own right. We can discuss that further in a second, but I think the stories last night are Bucks, what an operation. What's wrong with CJ Stroud and the Texans? And then, Justin Herbert and the Chargers are now 2 games up on the Chiefs, leading the West, and it looks like they've taken a step in their second year with Jim Harbaugh as the head coach. In the opening segment, before we get to your phone calls here in a second, there's a bunch of open lines, so grab them if you want. 608-321-1670. My opening take was Justin Herbert is awesome, and the Chargers are really good, and it's great for the NFL because they've been talented before, and it's a brand that, like, there's always something tantalizing there. It's like they got good players, they drafted well, or they got a good something or other, but it's never really worked. It's never really clicked. So they're almost like the Toronto Blue Jays of the NFL. Like Toronto's had good players for years. And then this year they're amazing. And everyone's like, where did this come from? It's actually like this probably should have happened a while ago. It just all kind of fell into place for the Blue Jays. This year they've had the pieces. It's just never really worked out. I feel the same about the Chargers. And it's great for football fans and it's great for the league because we have another team in the AFC West, another great quarterback who's going to be playing meaningful football late in the year in the AFC. You can never have too many. But I listen to people today, sports radio and television, where it's like Herbert. You almost got to put him in that tier with Lamar, Josh Allen. I really like Herbert. But the funny thing is, I feel the same and I think the same when I watch Justin Herbert as I feel and think when I watch Jordan Love. Like I think they're very similar players. Herbert's a little bit physically more stout. Like I trust him on a scramble. So you give him a little bit of a nod there. I've also seen Jordan Love play at a higher level in the postseason that I've seen from Justin Herbert. Take that with, whatever you will. Again, you can, here's a little bit of a nod to Jordan Love. Here's a little bit of a nod to Herbert. For the most part, I watch both of these quarterbacks and think, wow, what an arm talent, unbelievable ability, top 5, top 3, top 4 ability on this planet to make certain throws. But then there will be 4 or 5 times a game where it's like, that's a throw you should hit. I'm like, that's a read that, like, what'd you see that? Like, there's a couple plays like that every game. And that prevents, Justin Herbert or Jordan Love from being on that top tier as those other guys, those kind of 4 Mount Rushmore heavyweights in the AFC, Burrow, Lamar, Allen, Mahomes. I think Justin Herbert can win a Super Bowl. I think at this moment in time, I would tell you that, yes, Jordan Love can win a Super Bowl too, but they're a little bit behind. The problem is I think we recognize that with Jordan Love. I think everybody recognizes that. People don't seem to recognize that with Herbert. So I want to bring Herbert down just a little bit, and I want to bring Love up just a little bit. I would put both of those guys in tier number 2. I would put Baker there as well. And Vagabond John commented on the live stream, but what I replied and I typed in, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or on the Wisco Sports Zone app, like Baker's just such a different player. He's a night and day different player. Justin Herbert and Jordan Love overcome their deficiencies by having unbelievable talent. Baker doesn't have unbelievable talent. He's riddled physically with deficiencies, but overcomes those with big playability, with moxie, with leadership. Like he's just a completely different mix of traits and physical abilities. So it's really hard to compare those guys, which is true of the whole league. Like if you start, here's quarterback tier 2 and quarterback tier 3, you're going to have guys like Justin Fields next to Dak Prescott, 2 completely different players, right? Like it gets really difficult to compare quarterbacks once you get outside of that first tier. But I think Baker deserves all the credit. So does Herbert, but I just want to make sure Love is getting his too, because I don't, just watching and using my eye test and my eyes that are connected to my brain, like you can dig up stats, but I just think like, I feel like Herbert and Love are 1A, 1B, order them whichever way you want. I think they're kind of AFC, NFC counterparts right now. Unbelievable talent, but not quite on that top tier. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Chad from Sun Prairie.
Hey, Chad, what's going on?
Hey, I love the tiered comparisons and all this because it brings up some great fun memories of mine from years ago. Do you remember Jeff George, unbelievable arm talent that the Falcons decided to choose over Brett Favre, unbelievable arm talent.
Yep.
But what we were the beneficiaries of was the certain it factor. It's, I mean, some people call it charisma. That's really not the right word for it on a football field. It's just the it factor. It's
moxie.
What Baker Mayfield has.
Yeah, the Danny O'Neill,
I guess moxie.
the Danny O'Neill type
right.
qualities. Yeah, something like that.
I
at
don't
least.
know about that.
We'll see.
I don't know.
I need to see the Maryland game. We can have fun with Danny O'Neill until they lose Saturday, and then we'll have to adjust. But up until now, I'm willing to give Danny O'Neill the nod on moxie.
I mean, part of that, but like they elevate people around them. Baker Mayfield also is a beneficiary of one of the better coaches in the NFL. Todd Bowles is phenomenal,
but not an offensive genius. Like Liam Cohen just got poached, so he's had multiple. He's lost Canales. He's lost Liam Cohen now. So yes, I think Todd Bowles is a great coach. He's not like directly impacting Baker with scheme because Bowles is the defensive guy.
Yeah, he is, but he was smart enough to fire Byron Leftwich when he needed to and go get somebody else. You know, like
good coach, but like there have been quarterbacks in the league that like are direct, like he's getting helped by Shanahan. He's getting helped. Like Bowles is great, but it's not like Baker is the product of some tight pants whiz kid OC.
So you just kind of walked right into my next point there I wanted to make is coaching has so much on it. Like, take a guy like a Cutler. And Cutler played in Green Bay, left Denver for Green Bay. Would he have been, everything that Aaron Rodgers was? I don't know. Attitude there might have come into play a little bit more for Cutler, but he certainly had the arm talent and the physical talent.
Yeah, I don't think Cutler wanted it. Rodgers had an attitude and he had ego and all those things. Rodgers was also obsessed with being good. And if you've read about him, like going back to high school, all the sports that he played, like he's always been that guy. Cutler, I think he could give or take, some of the necessary physical requirements and training and preparation. Like, I don't know that he was all about that, whether he had a great coach or not.
I just like the Smoke and Jay comments fit his personality so well.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. He's a character, man.
Just the type of guy, take it or leave it. But again, like that's why when we talk about these tiers and it's so complex.
Of course.
I don't think that it's hard to take it other than value like win-loss record for where your quarterbacks fall, because put Lamar Jackson on a team that's put him on the Browns. Is he Lamar Jackson? Like I don't think so.
I don't think he's a guy who's won, and Chad, I appreciate it. I got to run. I don't think he's a guy who's won multiple MVPs. I'm to the point now with Lamar where I think he stands on his own two legs just because he's accomplished so much and he's been so consistent through multiple coordinators, through lots of talent that's changed around him. I think he's grown and gotten better every year. So I give that to Lamar. Baker is an interesting one. I'm so happy that he's good and that he's settled in because he's a great character and a great, I think, prototype for a player that doesn't need to be 6'4" with an arm of, steel. He finds ways to get it done elsewhere. And Vagabond John says, what can Love do that Baker can't? Make certain throws. And I know Baker made some unbelievable throws last night, but under duress, on the move, ad-libbing, Baker can do some of that stuff. And he can do enough of it, I think, to win a Super Bowl with that coaching staff and that roster. By the way, the Bucs OC, they went from Canales, who's now with the Panthers, Liam Cohen, who's now with the Jaguars. Now they have Josh Grizzard, the Lizard Wizard. You could have given me a billion guesses. I've actually never heard that name in my life. So Baker, product of a good team, a good organization and operation, but he has not been dependent and tied to one OC the same way that we've talked about with Goff. Like, well, Goff outside of McVay and outside of Ben Johnson, and I think Goff will be fine this year, but that's a talking point that's been used on others that I don't think you can really use on Baker at this point in his career, at least. 608-321-1670. One more call, and then we'll take our break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant's tiers list. I like this. This is good.
Wasn't really the point of the point of my opening segment in the first bit of the show is just like, I don't think Herbert and Love are that far off. Like I'll be a fan and say I think Love's a little underrated nationally, but that's it's now turned into tiers. So that's fine. We can do that thing.
Yeah, and like who's the bottom end of this? Like, did Stroud totally fall out this year, right? And especially after what we saw this weekend, and just not fully clicking. Not terrible, But, this is all who is the next batch. When we were growing up, Grant, we had Tom Brady, we had Ben Roethlisberger, we had Drew Brees. Like, are these guys going to be those guys? I don't think any of them are really there yet. I think Herbert's maybe the closest to reaching that kind of level of, man, the kids growing up right now, these are the quarterbacks they're really watching. But to the point of these three specifically, Jordan Love hasn't sniffed 40 touchdowns in a year, right? Like, his top output in terms of passing touchdowns is 32. Baker and Herbert both are hitting 40. Love hasn't crossed the 300-yard mark rushing, right? Last season, Baker Mayfield damn near ran for 400 yards, which really shocks a lot of people. But you saw it come into play last night on that game-winning drive, escapes pressure and runs the ball for 25 yards down the middle of the field. And like I said earlier this week, or maybe it was last, what got me most excited about Love's performance is lowering the shoulder and showing some mobility there. So I don't disagree that all of these quarterbacks are that similar. I think a lot of Packer fans would automatically put Jordan Love ahead of Baker Mayfield. But, man, if Jordan Love started his career with the Cleveland Browns, right? Jordan Love had it pretty damn good. And you can talk about a lot of these quarterbacks, and obviously Caleb Williams is going through it now. But quarterback is so much about your position and kind of who's your coordinator, to your point, who's around you, and what kind of organization are you playing for. I think Herbert struggled a little bit early in his career with it, but now the Chargers are back on track. And I think Baker's really been around the league. He was the guy that had to fly to Los Angeles overnight to start a game. He was kind of a laughing stock for a while.
He's at the Panthers. He was 100 times closer, to your point, Vagabond John. He was 100 times closer to being out of the league than he was a regular starter on a good team. Like this situation would have been unfathomable 2 years ago, or whenever he was in Carolina. He was buried with Sam Darnold, and then he filled in when the Rams needed a guy. No one ever thought this was happening. We thought that we were seeing him on his way out of football. That's what was happening. It's crazy to think.
And then last year he throws for 4,500 yards, 40 touchdowns, and he runs for 400 on the side, right? And so those are the numbers that I haven't seen from Jordan Love. And that's why I think right now, today, if I had to have one of these quarterbacks start a playoff game tomorrow, I'm probably taking Baker over Justin and Jordan. Justin hasn't done anything in the playoffs, and Jordan struggled at times. And Baker's just a gamer if you need one guy. So if you're going to frame the question in that way, I'm taking Baker over the field.
I mean, and Baker and Jordan Love have had in different samples. I appreciate it. I mean, Baker won a playoff game in Cleveland. He won in Tampa 2 years ago. They knocked off the Buccaneers. The Eagles walloped the Eagles. Remember that? So he's had some success. Jordan Love's had some success too. That Cowboys game was pretty legit. The Niners game was a little bit, I don't want to say that it was horrible. We remember because of how it ended. Justin Herbert is yet to have a signature playoff moment. It's tough to compare these three guys. It's a little bit easier to compare Herbert and Love because physically they're very, very similar. Baker, it's okay, well, and here's this other thing. How do I compare literally apples to oranges? They're both quarterbacks. They're both fruits, but they're so different. And then in that second tier, I would throw Dak. I would throw Jaden Daniels. It's well, now all of these guys are so different, it becomes impossible to compare them, which is why tiers is smart. Here's a group of guys who I think are similar, right? Wasn't the point of the exercise, but that's where we ended up. That's why live sports talk radio is fun. We'll take a couple-minute break. I want to come back and talk about some of the younger Packers defenders. Who do we really buy into? And if Packers, if they needed to extend guys today, who are you giving contracts to? Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, Colby Wooden. There's a lot of players. I want to discuss this next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show presented by In on the River. I want to talk about some of the Packers' young defenders here in a minute, but first, a couple of texts. 608-321-1670. Stephen Lacrosse on the comparisons of Jordan Love and Justin Herbert. My point is, I think those two players should be thought of incongruent. Is that the right word? Like, I think a lot of people think Herbert is the balls and incredible and knocking on the door of Herbert, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes. And maybe he ends up there. But as of right now, like, I think he's strongly leading that next tier. And at this moment in time, like, I think Love's right there too. So I'll give Love a little boost. I'll pull Herbert a little bit down. And I like to sandwich those guys, at least in my mental organization system, right next to each other. Stephen Lacrosse has got it. Got to say, I think you're spot on Herbert and Love. Only difference is Herbert beat the Badgers in the Rose Bowl. Nobody ever really saw Love. Both are a little farvish. Yeah, I think Herbert's sturdier, better runner, physically can scramble for it a little bit more. So I'll give him the nod there. I've seen Love play an amazing playoff game. I haven't seen that from Herbert yet, so I'll give Love the nod there. Again, we can go back and forth. Order them whichever way you want. The Badgers should have won that Rose Bowl, by the way. Which wide receiver was it who fumbled that ball? And who was that? Oh, my God, the punter. I swear to God, he was on the take. I can't even remember his name, and I'm glad that I can't. What a loser. They should have won that game. Rock and Rick says, Justin and Jordan in the same draft class. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Certainly doesn't feel like it. Feels like Herbert's been playing forever. And Love is, going into year 3 or has started year 3 as a starter. So, yeah, thank you guys for the text. I know I hand out the text line, so I do my very best. Sometimes I miss them, but I wanted to make sure that you guys got in here. So I don't know if you saw, I got sent this by our friend Bart Winkler last night. There's this cat who's become a presence on Packers Twitter, and maybe I have been behind the 8 ball, and maybe this guy's always been putting out good stuff. But Easton Butler, Packer Report, Packers insider guy, was very close to things around the draft. He's had some good juice. He's had some good scoops. He tweeted last night that the Packers are currently working on a long-term extension for linebacker Quay Walker. Despite the Packers receiving 2 trade offers for the former Georgia product, Green Bay has told teams they plan to extend Quay. The 2 teams are the Chargers, who offered a 4th, and the Saints, who offered a 5th. This is a little odd to me. It's odd that the Chargers and the Saints were, here's what happened. The Packers didn't pick up Quay Walker's 5th-year option, right? So maybe when that happened, general managers around the league did their due diligence and called and said, well, we've always kind of liked him. We could use a player like that. Maybe the Packers are out on him. Maybe we can get him for a later pick. We think that's a good value. Maybe that's what's burned. I'm just confused as to why general managers around football were in meeting rooms like, should we call on Quay Walker? Like, I think we should make a call. Like, that's bizarre, but maybe it happened. Maybe that was signaled by the Packers not picking up his 5th-year option. So then other teams were like, oh, the Packers must be out on him, or they're starting to be out. Let's be first in line. We'd like him for cheap. We could use that guy. Maybe that's how it went. Whether or not this rumor, with all due to Easton Butler, it seems like he's had some good juice. Whether or not this is true, I don't really care. This just kind of gets us into our conversation about take McKinney out, take Edgerrin Cooper out, take Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons out. The rest of the defense, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, Teron Hopper to a lesser degree, but we'll throw him in there. Devontae Wyatt, Colby Wooden, Quay Walker. I want to know if you got to pick or choose one or 2 of those guys, because when you're paying Rashawn Gary a bunch of money and Micah Parsons a bunch of money and Xavier McKinney a bunch of money, and if Edgerrin Cooper becomes the player that he's going to become or the player that we hope he's going to become, then there's probably going to be some money going to that guy. You can't pay Lucas Van Ness, a name that I forgot, and also pay Quay Walker, and also pay, Evan Williams, and also pay Javon Bullard. So what I'm starting to think about, and what I think would make a good discussion, on the show today, and we can roll this over into the 5 o'clock hour. After you take those prime time, your stars, and luckily the Packers, this is why their defense is constructed so well. They have 1 or 2 of those guys at every level, right? McKinney's making money on the back end. He's your leader and your star player back there. Edgerrin Cooper, a little different at linebacker, but you hope that he's your young, cheap star in the middle of the field. And then on your front, you're paying both Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons. Pretty good spot to be. Take all those guys out. The Packers have a lot of players who are year 3, year 4, year 5. Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, Lucas Van Ness, Colby Wooden. Quay Walker is in that mix as well. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. Evan Williams, who's in year 2 and already looks really impressive again. Guy came in and made an impact as a rookie right away out of Oregon. It looks like he's even better. The Packers love him. Javon Bullard, I thought, played best game as a pro against the Commanders on Thursday night. Which players on this defense were you like, man, it'd be really great to keep that guy? If you could keep him on top of all of the other players that they're paying, who would it be? The reason I bring up the Quay Walker juice or the scoop from Easton Butler is I just don't know if it would be Quay Walker for me. I'd like to think that you could draft a fairly similar player and pay him a lot less money. And I don't know what market value is for Quay Walker. I feel like we talked about this a couple of months ago, and I pulled up, the SPO-Track page for all the top paid inside linebackers. He's not going to get Fred Werner money Fred Warner money. He's not going to get, who's the cap from Georgia, who I think is with the Ravens, who's on the Bears, the inside linebacker. I know you're all yelling at Roquan Smith. You're all yelling at your radios. That's an easy one. I should have known that faster. He's not going to get that type of money. I wonder whereabout he would slide in. And I can pull it up here and we can look at average annual value, and you got to separate from pass rushers, but Fred Warner's making 21 a year. Roquan Smith is making 20. Tremaine Edmonds is an off-ball guy making 18. Zach Bond's making 17. I don't think he has a case to make more than that. What about Nick Bolton? Could Quay Walker get Nick Bolton money, which is about 15 a year? Patrick Queen's making 13 a year. He hasn't been a star, but he's a solid player. If we're talking about solid, not stars, but solid linebackers, that's 12 to 16 million a year. Would you do that for Quay? It's not going to take top dollar. You're not going to have to reset the linebacker market to pay Quay Walker at this moment in time, I think. But Packers fans, you're going to have to make some choices. And the reason I ask, which of these young defenders do you like? Because paying Quay Walker this deal might preclude you from paying Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt, who looks great. He's leading the NFL in pressures through 2 games at his position as an interior defensive lineman. Colby Wooden, that's a guy. Evan Williams, right? These are all these players that we have to kick around. And if you pay Quay Walker 12 to 16 million, which just looking at the market, I would guess that's what it takes, somewhere in there, maybe a little bit more. It might prevent you from paying a player that I like more. I think Quay is fine and solid, and I think he'll be a nice contributor this year. I don't know if I like him at a higher dollar value. Let's take a break now, and we'll come back on the other side. We can take some calls on this, and I think we'll roll this over into the 5 o'clock hour as well. We'll talk more about the young players on the Packers defense you're most willing to pay. And we can start with Quay Walker because apparently the Packers are interested in extending him. Final segment of the first hour of the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, last couple minutes of the hour here. Have any of you been paying attention and watching what's been going on? What is it, Eurobasket? I know some people have been Giannis watching, playing for Greece, which is cool if that's your thing. I just only have so much bandwidth. So I'm going to watch what I'm interested in, and I'm going to be perfectly and totally focused on that. And I'm not going to like half-ass the other stuff. Like if I decide I just don't have the bandwidth and the time to watch Eurobasket and then I'm just not going to watch. But I've been following along on the internet. What happened between Greece and Turkey? Obviously, there's some history there between those two countries. Dark history, if you know your European history. And I guess what happened is the Turkey Basketball Federation or whatever posted kind of a provocative graphic against Greece that they later deleted, which raised a lot of eyebrows. And then allegedly Alperen Şengün said something not so great towards Giannis, a little racy, I don't know. I'm getting caught up on all of this after the fact. And then Giannis did an Instagram live after the game and got annoyed and kind of snapped when everyone was spamming Turkish flags in his chat and didn't say anything awful, but like was clearly pissed and was like, man, get this out of here. Giannis earlier today, or was this yesterday? This was earlier today, posted on his Instagram story. During my live feed, I made an inappropriate comment responding to someone that was making disrespectful remarks. My intention was never to offend anyone, and I'm deeply sorry. I have nothing but love and respect for Turkey and people all around the world. That's how our parents raised us, with love and respect. It's a very nice statement. The way I've come to understand this, and I don't think I'm viewing the situation through green and tan colored glasses, I don't know that Giannis was in the wrong and needed to apologize. The fact that he did, not just glaze Giannis, because everything that Giannis ever does, he's just the best. But I think most of the time when Giannis does things, it's like, yeah, he is the best. I quote tweeted, if you want to go see the statement, Nate Marzian posted the screenshot. I quote tweeted it at Wisco Grant. I just said, Giannis has handled this 100 times better than any of our elected officials have ever handled anything in the last couple of years. I swear, it's so depressing. I had to turn off Twitter. Oh, Jesus, how old am I? I had to close out Twitter today because every other tweet that I scrolled by was like people yelling at each other in a congressional hearing or some media scrum with a politician where just yelling. It's like, God. And then Giannis, I don't think did anything wrong unless I've missed something. And I don't think I have. Giannis doesn't do anything wrong. And then comes out and apologizes and said, look, I understand people get their backs up. It was never my intention. I'm sorry. It's like, oh, this is nice. Taking accountability when you don't necessarily need to. Like, oh, God. I gotta turn off my Twitter because it's just these politicians. Both sides, all of them. I don't even know who's on whose side anymore. Everyone's yelling. Everyone's angry. Well, Grant, they should be angry. Yeah, save it. That's your 30-second, somewhat political angle. I like Giannis. Not enough to watch him play European basketball in the middle of the day. Not that much. I like him a lot. I don't like him that much. Not to watch preseason and not to watch Eurobasket. But I like him a lot and a cool, mature move. So when we come back after 5 o'clock, I want to talk about young Packers defenders. Who on this defense other than McKinney, Cooper, Parsons, Gary? Who's that next guy in your mind? Because it's been reported, and we've heard this kind of from other people too. There's a lot of respect and admiration and belief in that building for Quay Walker. So would you extend Quay Walker? I don't think it's going to break the bank, but it's a significant contract that might preclude you from paying other players that you like more. So take McKinney, Cooper, Parsons, Gary out of it. Who's the next guy? Would it be Wyatt? Would it be Evan Williams? Would it be Bullard? That's what I want to talk about coming back on the other side. But first, a 2-minute update from Zach Heilprin. Just the latest in Wisconsin sports. No commercials. No need to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, it's an off day for the Packers up in Green Bay. They'll get back on the practice field tomorrow to continue prepping for their first road trip of the season to Cleveland on Sunday. Injury is going to be a story this week as offensive linemen Zach Tom and Aaron Banks did not practice yesterday after missing last week's game. Their status won't be determined until later this week. Turning to the Badgers, they're getting ready for a visit from Maryland on Saturday. It remains to be seen if the starting quarterback Billy Edwards Jr. will be able to return. He's missed the last 2 games. The knee injury suffered in the season opener, but he has a little extra motivation this week as Edwards spent the last few years playing for the Terps, including as the starter a year ago. Coach Luke Fickell admitted that it would be addressed, though he said Edwards' injury situation could actually help here.
Yes, Billy's mature. Yes, he's an older guy and has been through a lot of things, but it's not something that we would go, unnoticed or say, hey, let's let the elephant in the room be the elephant in the room and let's not talk about it. But there's a lot of other things on his plate, which maybe is even a little bit more better for him. So he's distracted from maybe people talking about that as opposed to just saying, hey, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to be ready?
Badgers coming to the game 2-1, 8.5-point favorites. Terps are 3-0. Kick on Saturday is at 11.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
You may know Rural Mutual Insurance as the #1 farm insurer. But did you know they also offer competitive home, auto, business, and life insurance? They make it convenient to bundle your insurance while saving you time and money. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn more.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Brewers and Angels will get their series going tonight in Milwaukee. The Crew has a magic number of 8 to win the NL Central with 12 games to go. They have a 5-game lead on the Cubs in the division. First pitch at American Family Field is at 6:40. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
It starts and ends with Justin Herbert, who, to me, has thrown his hat to be an MVP candidate. And he can be hyperbolic, and it's like Jim, when he says, my goal is to make sure Justin Herbert is a Hall of Famer. And I think a lot of people kind of smirk and go, that's just Jim being Jim. But he's kind of serious because Justin Herbert can be a Hall of Famer. Like, Justin Herbert is a Hall of Fame talent. And when you get a coach like this, where you're going to win a lot of games, you're going to get the opportunity every year to be in huge games in December and obviously in the playoffs to put yourself in the Hall of Fame conversation. I would take Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh in this team. They could play with anybody.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Hour number 2, the Wisco Sports Show, presented by In on the River. It's starting to get pretty out, folks. And if you've never driven through the hills and the valleys and cruised the Great River Road on the western side of the state this time of year, well, I'm not telling you that you haven't experienced Wisconsin, but I think you have some things that you need to check off your list. And no better place to stay than right on the river. In on the River is right in downtown Trempealeau, and it's across the street from the river. And it's not a busy street either. It's not like, it's not bumper-to-bumper traffic going by. It's quiet. It's a dead-end road. And that dead-end road, by the way, goes to Sullivan Supper Club. You can walk right down the way, get a fish fry, get a nice bit of prime rib. The salad bar down there is banging. So to the right is Sullivan Supper Club. To the left is the marina. So if you're bringing a boat, it's right there. It's convenient, the boat landing. The Trempealeau Hotel, live music and food. And straight ahead is the beautiful river. And you can look across and see the bluffs and the hills on the other side. It's a beautiful time of year to visit that area. If you want to buzz down to La Crosse for the afternoon, Perot State Park is right there. Elmaro Vineyard, Trempealeau Mountain Golf. If you want to get the fellas or the ladies or whoever likes golfing, put together a weekend. And it's a great place to stay. It's a great home base if you want a little Western Wisconsin getaway. 608-534-7784. InOnTheRiverWI.com, or like their Facebook page as well. Give them a call and just be like, hey, we're looking to come to town. We've never done Perot, or we want to come fish for, walleyes in the fall or whatever. What do you recommend? And they say, well, we got some openings this weekend. This weekend is typically pretty popular for this, that, the other thing. They'll help you out. So give them a call, but you can certainly get started. I like to go to a website or a Facebook page first, InOnTheRiverWI.com, or again, their Facebook page, In on the River Trempealeau. All right, the young players on the Packers defense. They're paying McKinney. If Edgerrin Cooper stays on this trajectory, they're going to pay him. They're paying Micah Parsons. They're paying Rashawn Gary. Set all those players to the side. I want to talk about Bullard, Williams, Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, Colby Wooden. There might be a player that I'm forgetting, Lucas Van Ness. Who's the next guy for you? It's like, well, love to keep that guy. If we got to pick and choose, and the Packers will probably have to, teams with lots of good players have to pick and choose at some point, who would be the next guy that you'd prioritize? That's what I want to know. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Mike in Eau Claire.
Hey, Mike, what do you think about all this?
It's a similar topic. I told my buddy after the Parsons trade that the weakest link is Quay Walker.
Okay.
Not because he's the least talented, but because we need him to not punch coaches and not punch players out of bounds and start fights.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I'd like to keep him. But yeah, I kind of agree with you that he's kind of we're not going to be able to afford him with his talent.
Quay Walker?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Here's the thing. Mike, I'd like to think that you could go back into the draft and find someone who's similar. You could do a lot worse. I think you could do better. I think you should be able to find an adequate replacement. The problem is he wears the green dot, right? He's the guy who's calling the defense. That's significant. I also don't know if you extend him. I don't know that it's going to cost that much. He's not going to break the bank. He's not Fred Warner or Roquan Smith. Like, would you give $14 to $17 million a year for 3 years for Quay Walker? Stability. But I think you could do better.
I definitely will. You mentioned a 4th round offer or a 5th round offer. We need 3rd or higher.
Okay.
If we can get a 2nd round pick for him, I would take that.
Well, and I don't even know. Excuse me. I have to triple check his contract situation. So the report was, and Mike, I appreciate it. The report was from Easton Butler, who's had some really good Packers juice the last few months, that the Packers are working on a long-term extension for Quay Walker despite receiving 2 trade offers. Green Bay has told teams they plan to extend Quay. The 2 teams were the Chargers, who offered a 4th, and the Saints, who offered a 5th. I think his contract is up after this year. I think he's set to be a free agent, right? Because they declined his 5th-year option. Okay, so 2026 is a club option. I don't even really know. Oh, declined. Okay, so what I'm looking at is he's under contract this year, and then you can see the club option in 2026, which would be his 5th-year option. It's got an X through it. The Packers declined that. So they're going to pay him $4 million against the cap this year, and then he's an unrestricted free agent in 2026 after this year. So, Mike, unless they trade him in the middle of this season, that's no longer an option. They're not going to be able to trade him unless they do it in the middle of this season, which would make the opposite of sense to me. I think the Chargers and the Saints potentially called on Quay Walker, not because they think he's the best linebacker in football, right? Like if Micah Parsons becomes available, everybody's got to call and sniff around. Myles Garrett requested trade. Everybody's got to call and sniff around. The Packers don't pick up Quay Walker's 5th-year option, and there might be some teams, Chargers and the Saints, are like, well, we could be a little bit better linebacker. Let's see. Let's see how out the Packers are on Quay Walker. Maybe we can get him for a great value, right? So I think that's my thought process, because you hear, well, 2 teams called and offered for Quay Walker. You think, what? Why? Like you got to bang the door down to try to acquire Quay Walker. I think probably why that happened is the Packers didn't pick up his 5th-year option, which is a little bit of a signal to the rest of the league. It's like, we're not, like, we don't love the guy. We like him. I don't know what an extension for Quay Walker would look like. Again, if we're just looking at average annual value, which can be a little bit misleading, but those are how the contracts are advertised at the very least. Like that's what the agents like telling people. My guy got more per year than anybody else. Jordan Love got 50. My guy Joe Burrow got 51. Even though the inner workings of the contract and the guaranteed money and the signing bonus, that could be very different. The top paid inside linebacker in football is Fred Warner. He makes $21 a year. Roquan Smith makes $20. Tremaine Edmonds makes $18. Zach Bond makes $17. Nick Bolton makes $15. Okay, so let's talk Patrick Queen at $13, Nick Bolton at $15, because those contracts are a little aged. Like, okay, maybe you got to go a little bit higher than that. Could you get Quay Walker for 16, 17, something like that? That's not a horrible contract, and I like Quay Walker enough. I was telling you all last year, he had a really rough stretch. That Bears game at Soldier Field was kind of the worst of it, and then down the stretch, when Edgerrin Cooper was healthy and he was allowed to be the complementary piece to Edgerrin Cooper, which is how this is supposed to work, he looked a lot better. And then he hurt his ankle and he was kind of gutting through that. I have a lot of respect for Quay Walker. I think he's a solid linebacker and would be a really good piece to have alongside Edgerrin Cooper for the next couple of years. But you're not, that's not the question. The question is, do you believe him to be worth the money that he would be paid, which is $15-16 million a year, probably, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, you could do worse than Quay Walker. You could also, I think, without too much struggle, maybe find someone who's kind of similar or maybe even better if you want to go back into the draft. but I don't love the idea of starting a rookie next to Edgerrin Cooper next year. Then again, they have plenty of talent and established veteran players. Maybe that would be okay. I'm fascinated to know what the Packers are thinking about this. But this sets up the question. After those frontline stars are paid, and many of them have been, Rashawn Gary, Micah Parsons, Xavier McKinney, and let's set Edgerrin Cooper to the side because he's the easy answer. What young Packers defender are you prioritizing? Van Ness? Wyatt? To me, my answer might be Devontae Wyatt. I keep asking you guys. Maybe I'll give an answer. We'll get back to the phone calls here in just 30 seconds. I think my answer might be Devontae Wyatt. Through the first 2 games, he looks nasty and explosives. Through 2 games, he leads all interior defensive linemen with 11 pressures, according to PFF. You could probably find grades or stat counting that's a little bit different, but he has been outstanding so far this year. He looks explosive. He looks fast. He looks like the interior pass rusher that he was drafted to be. I might prioritize him over Quay Walker or Lucas Van Ness. Well, what about Evan Williams? He's a couple years away. That's a player that I really like. What about Javon Bullard? Right? Players that we're considering, players that we're going to need to kick around, and some choices the Packers are going to need to make. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's that?
Good evening, Grant.
Good evening, Tim. How are things in Sparta? It's a beautiful time of year in your neck of the woods. The hills and the trails and people out on the bikes. Oh, it's just getting to be the best time of year for you, Tim. I'm jealous.
Well, it's a little bit warmish, but I did see a guy pull 2 trout out of my creek on Sunday. So fishing is good right now. Water's low enough. So anyway, with Quay Walker, I'm not paying him $15 million a year.
Okay.
I think that we can find somebody in the draft. If Cooper stays where he is, I don't see him doing anything but getting better. I think we can find a complementary piece. Heck, you should be able to find a veteran for, do the same thing, 5 to 8. Wyatt, I think, is one guy that you have to look at. Re-signing. Bullard is another guy that you have to think about re-signing. Both of those guys this year have proven to be very effective at. I know it's only 2 games. Van Ness, you really don't have to worry about for 2 years because he's got that 5th-year option.
Do you think they'll pick that up? That'll be an expensive 5th-year option. They picked up, and it's worth mentioning. Tim, you talked about Devontae Wyatt. I think he'd be my priority too. The Packers picked up his 5th-year option. So we already have a shred of evidence that they are prioritizing him over Quay Walker, at least with that pairing, because they didn't with Quay, but they did with Wyatt. So that maybe gives us a little bit of an inside line into their thinking.
Yeah, I would rather have Wyatt. I think he is finally rounded into Kenny Clark at a younger age.
Well, he's getting more opportunities, and he's healthy. Right? That group has been a lot fuller the last 2 years with Kenny Clark there, and he's been banged up. He's healthy and now has opportunities, and like great on-field opportunities, not just to play, but if I'm an offensive lineman, I'm worrying about Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary first. That's a pretty good place to be. Which
is great for the guys in the middle. And I wish that they would move Van Ness inside. I know that they have played him inside a couple of times, and the few times that they have played him inside, if you watch the film, he does a tremendous job in there because he just grabs a hold of the guard and pushes him back into that space that the quarterback can no longer step up, has to now step up into because he's got pressure on both sides. So I think that combination across the front line, Van Ness, Parsons, and Gary, I think that you will find at crunch times, that's the one that they're going to go to because that's who put the maximum pressure on
I like
the
that.
quarterback.
Yeah, I like that. And Tim, I'm losing you a little bit. You're a little tricky to hear, so I'm gonna let you go. We'll talk soon. I know. I like the Devontae Wyatt of it all. I like the Devontae Wyatt angle. I was hanging out with a buddy on Friday night, and we were just watching Packers highlights because guys hanging out, just throw some Packers highlights on the TV. And I have found Devontae Wyatt to just be a very entertaining watch. He's a funny look. Aesthetically, he's a funny player. He's got a big gut, and he wears that shield, but he's always got like an expressive smile or something. Like the way he explodes through and runs, like he's a very entertaining player to watch. Maybe separate of the football, right? But also, I think that also plays into his play style and why he's just so explosive and fast up the middle for someone who his size. So if we're talking about maybe this should be the question. Instead of asking which Packers young defender would you prioritize, you could also look at it from this angle. You could also wonder which guy could potentially be easiest to replace. So then we're talking about how hard or how easy would it be to replace Quay Walker? How hard or easy would it be to replace Lucas Van Ness? How hard or easy would it be to replace Devontae Wyatt? There's a lot of season left. And I am more than ever before genuinely interested to see what Lucas Van Ness does. I wasn't out on him coming into this year, but I hated being in the position of expecting him, requiring him to be a stud for the Packers pass rush to be any good. We're not in that spot anymore. So the context in which Lucas Van Ness is playing has changed, which interests me. What's easiest to find? A durable, trustworthy linebacker who's available and calls your defense. That's Quay Walker. An explosive up-the-middle pass rusher, Devontae Wyatt. Or Lucas Van Ness, who's just kind of a physical freak. You know what I mean? You're telling me you couldn't draft another Lucas Van Ness? I know he was a top 15 pick. But is it easier or harder? Now, remember, the Packers aren't going to have a first-round pick the next 2 years. That's something to consider as well. The Packers seemingly draft guys like Lucas Van Ness all the time. I don't know the last time they've had an interior lineman look as explosive as Devontae Wyatt has when he's right and when he's had opportunities. Quay Walker, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So there's, again, two ways to look at it. Who would you prioritize? Who do you like the most? Or who do you think would be most difficult to replace? The answer should overlap, right? You should want to keep a certain player because you are most concerned about replacing that player. That's part of the equation. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
I would definitely keep Quay Walker
out
of those two. How's it going, Grant?
It's going good. You would keep Quay Walker?
I would. I think it's crazy how much one player can bring out. And so many other players, of course. But I don't know. I watched Quay Walker, and then I changed to, of course, my team, and he manages the field well. And him being so young and being able to already is a good thing. Not to throw out too big of a name already, but I watch Roquan Smith do it when I'm watching the Ravens, and then I watch Quay Walker do it, and I see him being just every bit as much as that. And all he needed was a little bit of help. And yeah, I mean, if you would have told me 3 weeks ago that the Packers were the number one team and that the best passers in week 2 were the likes of Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson, I would have absolutely just upchucked at the thought of it. But I don't know. I was very excited to go to the Ravens Packers game in December, and now I might have to go as a Packer fan.
Well, I mean, what do you feel that worse about the Ravens through 2 weeks? They lost a game that you should have won in week 2, and then they blew the doors off the Browns. We talked about this the other day, Hector. I would bet anything that the Ravens defense is going to get it figured out, and they're going to be the Ravens. Your problem, Hector, is not worrying about regular season games. You have now reached the place that Packers fans were in 2021, where it's
right.
Win as many regular season games as you want, knock yourself out. I don't care until January. I know you can win the division. I know you can get a top seed. I don't know that you can do it in the playoffs. So
right.
Packers fans,
I'm looking,
go ahead.
I'm looking all the way to the Packer game, and that's the second to last game of the season. But that's going to be, that's the test. If we can't win that game or even make it competitive, we're done for. And that sucks. That's a terrible way to go into the playoffs feeling. But yeah, it wasn't great seeing Buffalo beat us the way that they did, and that is a textbook way for Harbaugh to blow it in the playoffs. We just saw it in week 1.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I would tell you, Hector, to take a little bit of a deep breath because you got a long way to go until the playoffs. Ravens fans, as Hector is, Hector and I'll ask everybody, thank you for the call. Ravens fans have now got to be in a place that Packers fans were in 2021. I remember that season very well. I'll never forget it because I watched most of that season. I don't know that I could tell you. Was that the year they played the Ravens and the Browns? They almost lost to Tyler Huntley, and then they played Baker Mayfield and the Browns on Christmas. I think that was that season. I went that entire season without ever really getting all that amped up. Just like, yeah, all right. Aaron Rodgers is going to win another MVP. All right, they're the 1 seed this time. We'll see. And then the week of the Niners playoff game, the Packers posted that hype video that was narrated by Rodgers. And I'm like, all right, I'm in. And it was the second week of January when I finally said, all right. And then they lost that Sunday. It can be a frustrating place to be as a fan, especially when Hector in Alaska, Lamar didn't win a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. You're not trying to get back to number 2. You're trying to get back to the first, or trying to get to the first, which has got to be frustrating. We can continue to talk about Roquan Smith is an interesting name, but we can continue to talk about these young pieces on the Packers defense. I'll kind of reset the show at 5:30. I'll give you my opening take, which was Justin Herbert looked awesome last night. I don't know why people think so much more highly of Justin Herbert than they do of Jordan Love. So I'll give you that take. We can crack that bag of chips back open at 5:30, and more of your phone calls next at 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
What we've seen thus far in our Sumer scores is that any given one guy can play good. And I think that's a good sign, given that there is all the change and mixing around on the offensive line. The place where we have seen the cohesiveness fail is in those complex running concepts that Matt LaFleur likes to run. Right now, they are sitting at about 18th in rushing efficiency per play. We'd obviously love to see that get substantially higher, given that last year they were one of the teams who ran substantially more than expected. I think that is where we are seeing the struggles right now in the run game, particularly as it comes to closing out the game. But moreover, thus far, all things considered, this offensive line has performed extremely well. We've seen good individual performances. And in particular, we've seen the combination of those good performances and Jordan Love's sack avoidance be able to lead to him having tons of time and be able to go from read 1, 2, or 3, hit deep balls, and really make a difference in the passing game.
That's Sam Brookhouse, Super Sports. Not really at the heart of what we're talking about, but it's such a good comment. I wanted to make sure that I played it tonight. That's from earlier today. And Sam's been on the show before. But basically talking about grading the Packers offense and how it's worked so far this year, and said the O-line, even while missing guys, your left guard and your right tackle have been out, Packers fans, it hasn't really impacted them too much in pass protection. Jordan Love has been able to sit in a nice pocket, go through his reads, distribute the ball. Where it has affected the Packers and where those offensive line absences have been a detriment is in the running game, specifically all of those complex concepts that Matt LaFleur likes to run with motion and with shifting and all of these things. And that would track, and that would make sense with what we've seen with the eye test so far. Like, Josh Jacobs really hasn't gotten loose at any moment in time. I think the Lions keyed on it in week 1. And then in the short week, maybe the Commanders keyed on it as well, or maybe they keyed on it to a lesser degree. But now you're without Aaron Banks and Zach Tom, who are, financially speaking, your two most important offensive linemen. Hasn't really showed up in pass pro, which is a huge, huge, huge compliment to Adam Stenavich and that room and those guys, because pass protection, they didn't miss a beat. Run blocking has suffered a little bit. Luckily, Jordan Love in that wide receiver room has been able, and Tucker Kraft has been able to absolutely sling it, and it hasn't mattered. So I wanted to work that in. We're talking about the Packers defense. Bigger picture Packer thoughts are welcome too, but we're trying to figure out, after Xavier McKinney, Edgerrin Cooper, Micah Parsons, or Sean Gary, set those guys to the side. Who's your next biggest priority? Devontae Wyatt, Quay Walker, who the Packers are apparently interested in extending. And we've heard those types of overtures. You listen to Packers players in the locker room or people in the organization. They really like that guy more than people on the outside would believe. Would it be Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, Lucas Van Ness? Take your pick. Or another way to approach the same idea, which one of those guys would be most difficult to replace if the Packers were to let one of those go? Multiple ways to attack this. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, this is Travis.
Hey, Travis, what's going on?
Not a lot. Just calling in on the Quay Walker conversation.
Yeah.
I think they could definitely do better than Quay Walker at linebacker, but I would pay him. The part that worries me about letting him go is that for quite a few years before we had Quay Walker, we had guys like the best one that comes to mind is Blake Martinez.
Yep.
And we were always complaining about the Packers had no dominant linebackers, and I don't remember if it was Goody or LaFleur that commented on they don't need that dominant linebacker for their scheme. And I don't remember if it was you or Bill that said that, you don't prioritize that because you don't have one. That was their answer.
Right, yeah.
But so before him, the best one I could think of was Blake Martinez. And if you can sign a veteran guy, a Blake Martinez type for, I don't know what it would cost, $8-10 million a year for a guy like that, or if you could get Quay for 14, 16, 17, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to take Quay for that. I'd like to keep Devontae Wyatt too, and
Evan Williams. Yeah.
Evan Williams. Yeah, I like him at safety.
He's still, luckily, he's a couple years away. So I don't think you have to, if you keep Devontae Wyatt, I don't think that prevents you from keeping Evan Williams down the line. Those contracts are a little bit more staggered than, say, Wyatt and Quay, who were selected in the first round the same year, or Lucas Van Ness, who is then 2023. He was the year after. So those guys are clustered a little bit tighter, Travis.
Yeah, right. Yep. But no, I think you could do better than Quay, but at the same time, I think I'd be scared to do worse too at the same time.
And those are some of the trickier situations in sports, right, Travis? And I appreciate the call. You could do better. You could do cheaper. You could also do worse. You know what I mean? If Quay Walker completely and totally sucked, this is an easy conversation. He's solid. He's fine. I think, and I'm so glad, Travis, that you brought up Blake Martinez, because I think it's a great example. I think the Packers in the past have had inside linebackers who are fine. I thought Blake Martinez was fine to good to maybe even very good. It never felt like he impacted the defense as much as he should. Everyone always got their backup because, well, he's making all these tackles, but they're so far down the field. Okay, well, who was playing corner? Demarius Randall, Quentin Rollins. What was that guy's name? The fact that I'm starting to forget it makes me very happy because he's a player that's mentioned way more often than he should be. Ladarius Gunter. Right. Okay. So if that coverage unit sucks, that's Blake Martinez's fault. That's a referendum on him. If the pass rush can't get home, that's a referendum on Blake Martinez. Why I love the current Packers situation at linebacker is they have the pair. It's not just one, it's the pair. Edgerrin Cooper is fast, get downhill, instinctive player. Quay Walker can be a little bit more of the quarterback, lining things up, getting the play calls in. He's not going to be expected to make the splash plays, but he can set up Edgerrin Cooper to make splash plays, or when he gets opportunities because Edgerrin Cooper or Micah Parsons or whoever gets a lot of attention, then Quay Walker can make a play. Like, I think he is the perfect secondary linebacker to an inside guy like Cooper, who we all think is a stud and has a trajectory of being something, maybe a big stud, a very good stud, whatever. I try not to get out of my skis with Edgerrin Cooper because you listen to some Packers shows of people like it's just you're slating him to be an all-pro already. If this is as good as Edgerrin Cooper ever gets, he's still a pretty darn solid player. I don't like just writing it in pen that he's going to be amazing for the next 5 years. We don't know that. I feel good about those chances. I like the trajectory he's on. But right now, that pairing, that combo, like who played next to Blake Martinez? Blake Martinez on the Packers in 2016, right? That defense sucked ass. Let's look at the roster. 2016 Packers. And I think I'm getting the years right. Blake Martinez should have been on the Packers that year, right? If we look at their linebackers, Jaron Elliott, Kyler Fackrell, Clay Matthews was still on the team in 2016. What the hell? Blake Martinez, Julius Peppers, Nick Perry, Jake Ryan, Joe Thomas. There you go. I'd be willing to bet that if Quay Walker played next to Blake Martinez, we would probably think about Blake Martinez a little differently. Or if Edgerrin Cooper did, right? Fill in whichever blank. I don't even know football speaking, like the Sam or the Mike or whatever. I've never played football. I don't try to pretend to be an expert on these things. But like Jake Ryan, he was a 7th round pick, wasn't he? 4th round pick. Joe Thomas, that guy wasn't any good. Not to be confused with Jaron Elliott, who also wasn't any good. But like the coverage unit, Kentrell Bryce, McKinton DeLorient, Marwin Evans, Ladarius Gunter, Josh Hawkins, Demarius Randall. Like, ugh. No wonder we didn't think Blake Martinez was any good, or no wonder we complained about Blake Martinez. Linebacker is a lot like running back, and that they're not really allowed to do their thing unless everyone else on the field can hold their water. Like if the coverage unit can't cover, a good middle linebacker is only going to do so much for you. If a pass rush can't get home, a good inside linebacker is only going to do so much for you. Like on an offense, if nobody respects the quarterback and the O-line isn't any good and the wide receivers aren't dangerous, you could have Saquon Barkley on steroids and it wouldn't matter, right? You could have Saquon Barkley on 100 pounds of steroids. It wouldn't matter. So inside linebacker is similar to running back, which is why people bristle at paying inside linebackers. And sometimes I think that's warranted. Sometimes when you have Fred Warner, like he's a stud, like you just have to pay that guy. He's so good. But Quay Walker might be that player. It's like, well, we could do worse. We could do better. We could do cheaper. You're really trying to figure it out. That's why the Packers, this situation with Quay Walker is interesting, especially because I think their situation with Quay Walker might impact Devontae Wyatt. But then again, they already picked up the 5th-year option for Devontae Wyatt. They didn't with Quay Walker, which gives us a little bit of a line into their thinking about maybe how they view both of those players or how ready or willing they were to pay those players at that time. 608-321-1670. One more call, then we're going to take a break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Louie in Eau Claire.
What's going on, Louie?
Hey, Grant. I think a lot of Quay Walker's value is tied to Jeff Hafley. Now, Jeff Hafley has got enough confidence in him that he's wearing the green dot. He's the guy he talks to in the headset. I think that, maybe I'm a little bit swayed or shaded by just the Quay Walker incident with the medical staff, like the 1 week after the Mar Hamlin deal. I've kind of never really thought of him as a real cerebral player.
Yeah.
But Jeff Hafley seems to have kind of gotten to communicate with him and feels comfortable enough to kind of be the leader of the defense. Now, if Quay Walker's got to learn another defensive coordinator's scheme because Jeff Hafley moves on to a better job somewhere, I'm a little leery. But if Jeff Hafley's going to be around, I think it's worth keeping Quay around.
Interesting. Okay, so you want to keep them together. That's an interesting angle, Louis. So we've had 2 callers reference Quay Walker shoving a trainer once upon a time. And I'm not going to dismiss the fact that happened. It did. But we have years of evidence now that Quay Walker is the brain of that defense, wears the green dot, calls the plays, is kind of the command center. I kind of put more value on that than some emotional mistake he made once upon a time. Like to give you a real life analogy, like there's a man who runs a company. He's in charge of 200 employees. All of the trains and clocks run on time, right? The company's well run. The guy's brilliant, good mind for numbers. All the employees like him. He's organized. He's good at his job. But 5 years ago, he got a DUI. That was a dumb emotional mistake. I don't know that we can use that one dumb emotional mistake to draw sweeping judgments about his intelligence or his character. It's a legit thing. It just happened so long ago now. It's not something that I think about a whole lot. I wonder how the Packers feel or think about it. Obviously, it's still on the mind of some callers. I guess my point is maybe it shouldn't be on your mind as much as it is. Not telling you how to fan. That's just my perspective on it all. I lied. We got one more call and then break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, you know what? I'm in New Mexico, Breaking Bad territory, and
nice, are you recruiting? Are you on the recruiting trail for AAU?
No, I'm doing my day job here. But I will say this: I was watching the Texans game last night, and you're talking about Jordan Love and Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud, kind of comparing all these guys. And I'm watching the Texans play. I'm like, what a boring stadium, boring uniforms. There's no atmosphere. It's just like blah. It's just like generic.
It's very blah. NRG Stadium, if that's still what it's called, is one of the most like boring television products in the league. 10 out of 10 agree. That's might be the best take of the night so far, Tony.
Okay, I'm watching that Vegas Chargers game last night, and the boxer Terrence Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
He's spitting bars that he's a Packer fan. I'm like, you know what? We are America's team. You watch these games. We got the highest rated game on Amazon, the highest rated game on CBS. The Cowboys are flailing around. I'm just watching like Jaden Reed on Instagram or whatever saying funny stuff. I mean, this is just, we are the team. I love the nickname of the defense. It's called the Cold Front. Have you heard that one?
Ooh, no, I haven't heard that. That works well.
I like that. I think that, hey, let's start talking that up. Let's make that happen.
The Cold Front. I see people calling Tucker Kraft the Warlord on Twitter, which I think is a good nickname.
I mean, it's hard to hate the Packers unless you're like, a Vikings fan or a Bears fan.
Yeah. But I've also really look, and I'll say this about this Vikings team. I don't find them to be unlikable. There have been Vikings teams where I'm like, there's some guys on there who talk smack and I don't really like. I don't know. Right. I look at this Vikings team, like I like Aaron Jones, right? There's a lot of likable players on there. Van Ginkel's a Badger. This Packers team is pretty darn likable. Yeah, Van Ginkel's a stud. Shout out Denny and Holman. This Packers team is very likable. Like, I think that's a good point. There's not a lot of guys that you like Jordan. How can you say anything about Jordan Love? How can you hate on that guy?
Exactly. Hey, you know what? Jefferson's a little bit of a jag. And then you talk up, he just kind of is. And then Quay Walker is, but it's a different definition. Just a guy. Quay Walker, just a guy. He's just a dude. He's just a normal player.
Yeah.
Let him go. Let him walk. Nice guy. All the other immaturity stuff, he's put it past him, but he's very stiff. Slow reactions, not the greatest player.
You know what? We can talk about this. I'm going to mark this down. Tony, I appreciate it. Enjoy New Mexico. I'm going to ask Ryan Wood about this on Friday. How difficult would it be to replace Quay Walker and what he means and what he does for this team? Because Teron Hopper took a big step in camp. I don't know if they ever imagined Teron Hopper ever being a starting high-level contributing player. I know Mike Renner talked about when he saw that pick, he thought it was a special teams guy. Like, that's all he thought of that guy. So I don't know internally what the Packers believe of Teron Hopper and what they project for his future. But we can talk about this with Ryan Wood. I'll mark it down. We can discuss this with him. We might have him on Thursday because I'm on location. I'm going to be broadcasting live on Friday night. By the way, great time to mention it and to advertise it. We're going to be at La Crosse Beer House down on the corner of 3rd and Pearl. So if you're a WKTY listener, or maybe you'll just be in La Crosse this weekend, come on out and say hi. I think what I'm going to do is probably have a pre-recorded interview with Ryan Wood and maybe one other guest. So we'll do some of the show live, And then I'll play some interviews to fill out the show, and then I can mingle around and we can have a pretzel and we can hang out. So Lacrosse Beer House corner, 3rd and Pearl on Friday, a little bit of an Oktoberfest warm-up. I hope to see you there. And I'm playing some gigs over the weekend. So we'll go for Beer House if you want some live music, the Popcorn Tavern, 8 to midnight or so on Friday. We can make it a whole thing. So I hope to see some of you on Friday night, Lacrosse Beer House from 4 to 6 for the live show. But we'll talk about, back to my original point, Quay Walker, how easy or difficult would he be to replace? Ryan Wood can give us a little bit of an idea of what he really provides to this team in ways that maybe we don't see or hear from our couch when we watch these games. We'll take a couple-minute break. We'll come back, continue the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
I'm not going to sit up and say we're the best team in the NFL. I mean, it's just 2 games. We got a lot of football to play. And I think the biggest thing about being 2-0, like, to be honest, like, you can't really get complacent, and you can't feel like you won a Super Bowl, because it's a lot of that start off 2-0, and later in the season, they don't be worth this.
That's Xavier McKinney the other day to Dave Schrader, WBAY in Green Bay. I like hearing that messaging. I mean, that messaging is the only option. You know what I mean? Like, a player doesn't have the option right now to say, yeah, we're 2-0. We've accomplished everything. We're obviously going straight to the Super Bowl now. Like, no, you're going to say that. I hope they're acting that way and they're practicing that way. I hope that's not just messaging and lip service from Xavier McKinney. We were talking a little bit about Quay Walker, whether or not the Packers should extend him. And if not Quay Walker, okay, well then who's the next young player on this Packers defense that you want to prioritize? You talked a little about Quay Walker. I'll get back to the phone calls here in 30 seconds, but I believe it was Travis, or no, it was Louis and Eau Claire pointed out that, you know, Quay Walker is his success has been tied to Hafley. And Rick on the live stream says he was bad until Hafley showed up. I would contend, this is just my eye test. I don't even know how you would dig up stats to back up such a thing. So I'll tell you, I could be wrong. This is my eye test, but then again, I'm the host of the show, and you must buy into that on some level because you're listening to this production. I feel like Quay Walker has mostly been the same player most of his career. Now, he's had some ups and downs. Every player does. But I don't think Quay Walker has taken massive leaps, and I don't think he's taken huge steps back. And I don't think that Jeff Hafley is the reason that he all of the sudden looks way better. I think it's the fact that he's playing next to Edgerrin Cooper and not whoever the F. I don't even remember who. Like, his dream job is to be the supporting cast. He's the cat next to the guy. He's the perfect guy for that. The question really isn't, does Quay Walker fit? Is Quay Walker good? That's not my question. My question is it worth paying $15-16 million a year to retain him, or can you find another guy to do that for much cheaper? That's really the question. I don't think Hafley has unlocked something in Quay Walker. I think the fact that Edgerrin Cooper is next to him and Xavier McKinney's behind him, and now Micah Parsons is in front of him. That's what I think it is. I think it's more that thing, not, you know, Jeff Hafley figured out how to unlock him or anything like that. All right, we'll take 2 calls here. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on I-90.
Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, Grant. I love the topic. We got 2 of them, right? We got Quay Walker, and then we got, it's Justin Herbert, or Herbert, whatever his name is,
Mm-hmm.
and Jordan Love. Are they on the same tier?
Yeah.
So let's go to Quay Walker. I'm just going to tell you that if we don't even have to go back even a whole year, and I can remember you and Bill saying that Quay Walker's got to go. He's got to go. That I can have the court reporter read it back to you, Grant, if you want.
I mean, what?
You were saying.
Cut him, trade him? I mean, his stretch of play,
you
like,
done. You were done with him.
what was
a year
it?
ago, you were done with
Out of the bye against the Bears, he looked horrible. And then I also can tell you, we could have the court reporter pull, like, I remember coming out of that Bears game and a week later being like, okay, Quay Walker's not a superstar, but he's not this bad. He's having a rough stretch. And then him and Edgerrin Cooper started playing together, and it started to look a little bit more copacetic. Again, to the point that I was making before I took your call.
So there's an ebb and a flow to it, right? There's an ebb and a flow to the game. All right, if you're winning, Quay is okay. If you start to lose, they're going straight for Quay.
Sure.
He's the problem, right? So I think we settled that, right? I don't think he's a bad linebacker at all.
I think he's fine. You know, you probably have a whole host of guys like that in your Vikings career, like Anthony Barr. Was Anthony Barr a superstar at any point, Eric? Like he's probably better than Quay, but he's a player where it's like, yeah, he was good. He was never horrible. He was never amazing. He was just a player that you keep around for maybe a second contract, and he was solid. He's fine.
Probably a Viking that's following the same path of Quay Walker would be our outside linebacker. We just drafted him last year.
I know who you're talking. Dallas Turner.
Dallas Turner. He's probably on about the same course as Quay Walker. Every once in a while, he makes a play, but not near enough of them. Right?
A guy who can be on your team, and you're happy to have him, but it's not going to be your best player, and a guy who you're not like jumping at the opportunity to pay more money to.
No, and if he was going to explode, he'd have exploded by now.
Yeah, it's still early for him. Although I don't know like how old he was or how much of a finished product he was. I know that you guys needed an edge rusher last year, and there weren't a lot of them. So Dallas Turner was kind of the guy.
Right. That kind of guy. So, it's really the ebb and flow of how you feel about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of how your team is actually doing.
Well, yeah, Lucas Van Ness a month ago was a laughing stock, and now it's like, man, how are we going to pay Lucas Van Ness? Like, it's amazing how Micah Parsons get here, you win 2 games, and all of a sudden, all these guys are stars.
Yep, they're all stars. They're all maybe the best that ever played, and many. I don't think you're saying that, Graham. But like a Peter Bukowski, he's like sitting home quantifying all this, and he's just like, oh my gosh, I'm punching this on a calculator. I just looked at the old 22, and he's the best I ever played.
The old 22.
All right.
Appreciate it, Eric. And that's why I said, and I got to run because I got to get one more caller in here, Eric. I'm sorry. I hope to see you this week or next at one of our live shows. I'll watch for you. Beer House this Friday, Flipside Thursday and Friday next week, and Ebo will be there in the morning too. The old 22. I'm not telling you Lucas Van Ness is amazing, but the context changes quite a bit when Micah Parsons arrives, right? Like you think differently about some of these guys. All right, one more caller, then our last break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner, Mark. How are we doing, sir?
Hey, Ridge Runner. One of our best 5 o'clock hour callers. Welcome. What's going on?
So Quay Walker, something to think about if we're talking about, well, should we pay him? Should we? Can we kick him? Is he not the guy that is basically getting the plays from Hafley and then communicating that? Essentially the defensive quarterback.
He's the guy with the green dot on his helmet. Yeah.
Right. You really want to just kick that to the curb when that's more so that's something to factor in with, what he's contributing to the team. And also, I've mentioned this before, his comp is he's A.J. Hawk to Edrin Cooper's playmat.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah. I agree. That's great. But Quay Walker has the advantage of being like the 20th overall pick and not a top 5 pick. You know what I mean? Like imagine if Quay Walker was a top 5 pick, how differently we'd talk about him.
Certainly. But that's kind of his value. And yeah, players around you are going to make you better or worse. If you can find a good fit, then an average player is going to be better. And that's what makes it a team sport. So we can't just look at him in a vacuum. So those are the 2 points I really wanted to make.
And those are excellent points. And sorry, I'm up against it because I got to get one final break in here. The idea is, yes, the players around you impact things. You need with these decisions, like Quay Walker's contract. I love how this just turned into the Quay Walker hour. And I love that there's that many people who have a Quay Walker take. This is why Packers fans are the best. Sports Talk Radio is the best. Like, this is why these decisions matter, is because paying somebody means you're not going to be able to pay somebody else, which will impact another player in this position. It's all connected. This is why these positions are important, or these decisions are important. We'll take one final break here. We'll come back, wrap up the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Zone Blitz pregame bash is back. Every Wisconsin home game 2 hours before kickoff at the Blue Moon Bar and Grill. And this year, do I have something special for you? It's a perfect snack for game day or any day. Wenzel's Farm Pro Snack Sticks. Come see me and I'll hand you 16 grams of protein to fuel you through the day. Wenzel's Farm offers that and so much more, crafted in small batches using premium cuts of meat, perfectly seasoned, and naturally hardwood smoked. Check out wenzelsfarm.com. Made by pros for pros.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
I've always admired the power of flag football, the fastest growing sport in the world, and how it connects fans of all ages. And I want to help continue the global movement and momentum that our game is having. So I'm very excited to announce that I'm coming out of retirement and teaming up with His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, Fanatics, OBB Media, and my friends at Fox Sports to launch the Fanatics Flag Football Classic, which will bring American football to the Middle East on March 21st, 2026 at Kingdom Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, as part of Riyadh season.
Did anyone else see that last night? Tom Brady announcing that he's partnering with Saudi. I've always admired the power of flag football. So how much, Tom? Like, what kind of check did they cut you? Here's what I'm noticing with Tom Brady. I'll give you 30 seconds on this, and then the show is done. He was sitting in the booth last night, too, with his headset and his suit on. I hate to see famous, successful people struggle with this so much. Again, I could give these people advice. Tom, you're the greatest quarterback of all time. You're good looking. You're tall. Everyone thinks you're a badass. You can only hurt your reputation by doing things. The way Michael Jordan's handle's been great. Stay kind of mysterious. Speak less, do less. Brady just do TV, nothing else. Be a silent partner or an owner for the Raiders, fine. Now you're playing flag football and you got this weird Fanatics. I'm out on all of that. Tomorrow, Jesse Temple will be here. We can talk about Bama and we can get ready for the Maryland game, the latest on the Badgers. Enjoy the evening. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 4. Thanks for listening.